Animal production and protection. Animal poisoning. The role of government in animal health. Aims of lesson. At the end of the lesson, learners should be able to define concepts relating to creative thinking and problem solving. Apply the knowledge and skills associated with the topic of external parasites as mentioned above. Introduction. Previous content that was dealt with in Term 2 must be linked to the current content. Animal diseases and protection. Purpose of the next lesson is to discuss the content associated with plant and metallic salt poisoning of animals. The role of government in animal health. Concepts and skills. Animal poisoning, metallic salt poisoning and plant poisoning. Metallic salt poisoning. Salt poisoning occurs when excessive amounts of salt are taken in and intake of good quality water is limited. It can happen in all animals, but is most common in pigs, cattle, and poultry. Ruminants have the ability to rid the body of excess salt to a degree, and are more tolerant of brackish water than pigs and poultry. Salt poisoning is directly related to water consumption. Limited water intake can be due to faulty drinkers, overcrowding, unpalatable medicated water, frozen water, or new surroundings. Symptoms. Cattle and sheep will show symptoms of loss in appetite, weight loss, dehydration, circling, blindness, gastroenteritis, seizures and partial paralysis. Pigs become blind, deaf and oblivious to their surroundings, stop eating and drinking, wander aimlessly and bump into objects, and circle around a single limb. After a couple of days they start getting intermittent seizures, ending in a coma and death. Poultry have increased thirst, fluid leaks from their beaks, and they experience weakness, diarrhea and leg paralysis. Hypersensitivity to touch. Mucous membranes of mouth are red and dry. Excessive salivation. Increased urination and defecation. Increased thirst. Vomiting and regurgitation. Constipation. Abdominal pain and diarrhea. Wobbling, circling, blindness, seizures and partial paralysis. Nervous symptoms such as dragging the hind legs or knuckling the fetlock joint. Aggressiveness. Treatment. Immediate removal of the source of the salt poisoning. Provision of fresh water first in small amounts at short intervals. Severely affected animals must be given water using a stomach tube. Small animals can be treated with a hypertonic dextrose or isotonic saline solution. Copper poisoning symptoms. Jaundice of the gums, bronze-colored liver. Urea poisoning. Urea licks or feed containing urea are not mixed correctly, which results in animals consuming too much urea at a specific time. Licks or feed containing urea are put out in the rain, the urea will dissolve in the water and form highly concentrated puddles. Sheep are inclined to drink this water, with fatal consequences. Symptoms: the animal will bloat, because the ammonia gas will accumulate in the rumen, and the animal is not able to perform the eructation movement. The alkaline body fluid affects the brain and the animal becomes wild, trembles and staggers. Fluid accumulates in the lungs, resulting in edema that causes foaming in the mouth. Breathing increases and the animal suffers from convulsive fits. Animals die soon after the symptoms are seen. Tetany, painful muscular cramps. Treatment: prevention and control of salt poisoning. Dose 1 L of vinegar with 2 L of water with a stomach tube or inject it directly. Alter the rumen. Always have clean, fresh water available for animals. Monitor animal behavior. If animals drink more water than usual, check feed for excess salt content. Measure ingredients correctly and cover urea licks against rain. Accustom animals to urea and salt licks and provide them simultaneously. Increasing supplementation with urea gradually. Limiting access to urea-containing licks for animals showing symptoms of salt deficiency. Supplying readily fermentable carbohydrates for the efficient use of urea. Not feeding animals with urea on an empty rumen because the microbes cannot utilize the ammonia. Giving animals access to enough clean water, which is important for the rumen fluid volume and to prevent the absorption of too much ammonia. Mixing rations properly and in the right composition. Not allowing animals to take in more than 0.2 g of urea per kilogram of body mass. Feeding rations and licks containing urea under cover protected from rain. Plant poisoning. The most important plant poisoning: maize fungus, poison bulb, thorn, apple, etc. Blue acid, cyanide poisoning. The way it works is that if a cyanogenic plant undergoes some sort of destruction that brings the compounds and enzymes into contact with each other, the cyanide is formed. It is found in many plants in which it is bound to certain sugars. The toxic acid is released if the plants are damaged by frost, trampling or wilting. The toxin interferes with oxygen consumption in cells and is in most cases lethal. The kinds of plant cellular destruction that can cause the cyanide to be formed: cutting, wilting, freezing, drought, crushing, trampling, chewing and chopping. Symptoms: sudden death shortly after ingestion of plants with high acidity. Affected animals scurry around, tremble a lot, appear very restless and die within moments. Affected animals inflate easily. Post-mortem: inflated, almond smell in rumen in fresh carcass. Bloat. Bloat is simply the build-up of gas in the rumen. This gas is produced as part of the normal process of digestion, and is normally lost by belching, eructation. Bloat occurs when this loss of gas is prevented. There are two sorts of bloat. The least common type is gassy bloat, which occurs when the gullet is obstructed, often by foreign objects such as potatoes, or when the animal can't burp, such as with milk fever or tetanus. The second type of bloat is frothy bloat, which happens as the result of a stable foam developing on top of the rumen liquid, which blocks the release of the gas. This is by far the most common form of bloat, and unlike gassy bloat, it is highly seasonal with peaks in the spring and autumn. This is because the foam is formed by breakdown products from rapidly growing forages, particularly legumes such as clover and alfalfa. These increase the viscosity, stickiness, of the rumen fluid and prevent the small bubbles of gas formed by rumen fermentation from coming together to form free gas that can be belched off. Clinical signs. Distended left abdomen is the most obvious sign, usually associated with pain, discomfort, and bellowing. Death can occur within 15 minutes after the development of bloat. Gaseous bloat is usually seen in 1 or 2 animals. Frothy bloat can affect up to 25% of cases. In some cases, sudden death may be the first sign seen by the stockman. Although in such cases it is likely that there will be other cattle with bloat that are still alive. Treatment. Passing a stomach tube is the best treatment for gassy bloat. Once the gas has been released, the cause of the obstruction should be looked for. In a few cases, a trocar and cannula punched through the side into the rumen will relieve gassy bloat when a stomach tube has not worked. But such cases are rare, and as the trocar provides a tremendous opportunity for introduction of infection, it should only be used as a last resort. For frothy bloat, anti-foaming agents that disperse the foam should be given by stomach tube. Old-fashioned remedies such as linseed oil and turpentine are effective, but newer treatments such as dimethicone or poloxamine are easier to give as the effective dose is much smaller. If an outbreak of frothy bloat occurs, all cattle on that pasture should be removed immediately and put onto a high-fiber diet, hay or straw, and any cows showing bloating signs treated with an anti-foaming agent. The pasture should not be grazed for at least 10 days. Prevention. If possible, avoid using high-risk pastures at high-risk times. Pastures with a history of bloat problems or with a high clover content should not be used for cows soon after turnout. Stagger turnout with buffer feeding, as this will allow the rumen to adapt to the new diet. Try and keep up fiber intakes at risk periods. If you must use high-risk pastures, introduce the cattle to them slowly. In some cases, restricting access to as little as 10 minutes per day at the start may be necessary to prevent bloat. Avoid starting to graze high-risk pastures when they are wet. Administer anti-foaming agents daily if bloat is a severe problem. If this is the Case and you can strip graze, then spraying anti-foaming oils, emulsified with water, onto the grass can significantly reduce labor costs. Remove high-risk animals. Some animals have recurrent bloat despite prevention and treatment. The basic principles of good health to control animal diseases and parasites/pests. Good management. Regular inspection of animals for early detection of signs. Prevention of disease by vaccination. Isolating newly purchased livestock. Starting treatment as soon as the disease or parasite is detected. Using the correct application technique and dosage of medication for successful treatment. Good nutrition by providing a balanced ration. Ensuring that feed supplements are not contaminated. Giving animals access to enough fresh, clean drinking water. Good hygiene in handling animals, cleaning and disinfection of animal houses. Disinfection of all equipment used such as shears and medical equipment. Isolation of affected or infested livestock to prevent the spread of the disease or parasite. Getting expertise, knowledge and help from a veterinarian or health technician. Waiting for the withdrawal period of medicines before using the animal products or selling the animal. Ethnic veterinary practices. Examples of indigenous remedies include warm stout, which is fed to the cow to remove the afterbirth. Cobwebs, which are applied to wounds to help stop the bleeding. Herbaceous plants, Hyptis suaveolens, which are made into a tea and drunk to help your severe diarrhea. Coconut milk, which is fed to calves to deworm. Basic principles of good health. Ensure that animals are farmed and treated in such a way to reduce food losses due to animal morbidity and mortality. Increase productivity in animal population yields. Protect human health against diseases transmissible from animals. Ensure humane treatment of animals. The role of the state in animal protection. Legislation. Quarantine services. Notifiable diseases. Rural disease control. State veterinarians and livestock inspectors. Vaccines. Control over livestock remedies. Animal health schemes. Duties of owners of animals. Import bans. Export of animals and animal products. Importation of vaccines. Movement permits. Research. Legislation. Animal Health Act, 2002, Act 7 of 2002, provides for measures to promote animal health. Measures to promote control of animal diseases. Regulating the importation and exportation of animals and animal products. Establishment of animal health schemes. Animal Diseases Act No. 35 of 1984 provides for control of animal diseases and parasites. Measures to promote animal health. Fertilizers, Farm Feed, Agricultural Remedies and Stock Remedies Act, 1947. Act No. 36 of 1947, deals with registering of stock, remedies, veterinary medicines, duties of owners of animals. Veterinary and Paraveterinary Professions Act, 1982, Act No. 19 of 1982, provides for the establishment, powers and functions of the South African Veterinary Council, registration of persons practicing veterinary and paraveterinary professions, control over the practicing of veterinary and paraveterinary professions. Abattoir Hygiene Act, 1992, Act No. 121 of 1992, provides for the maintenance of proper hygiene standards in the slaughtering of animals, handling of meat and meat products. Fencing Act, 1963, Act No. 31 of 1963, regulates the erection and maintenance of boundary fences, conversion into jackal-proof fences in proclaimed areas. Agricultural Research Act, 1990, Act No. 86 of 1990 establishes the Agricultural Research Council, ARC, to undertake agricultural research. Control over livestock remedies. According to law, all livestock remedies must be registered before they can be sold. Registration will only take place after it has been proved that the remedies are efficient. By law, the Minister of Agriculture can prohibit the use of a livestock remedy. Government is responsible for the publication of information through the media about outbreaks of disease. Quarantine services. The government has certain quarantine services to prevent the spreading of animal diseases. Quarantine services apply to animals being imported or exported into or out of the country. Efforts to keep certain diseases in a specific area within the country. Notifiable diseases. There are approximately 32 notifiable diseases in South Africa. Owners of animals are required to report any suspicion of these diseases to the Department of Veterinary Services. The Department of Veterinary Services also appoints veterinarians and inspectors in rural areas that help with the identification of diseases and the formulation of immunizing and dosing programs. State veterinarians and livestock inspectors. Veterinarians and inspectors are appointed and paid by the state in those rural areas where a need for a veterinarian exists. These experts help with the identification of diseases and the formulation of an immunizing and dosing program. They also help with guidance to prevent the occurrence of infectious diseases. Development of vaccines. On the Steport, to the north of Pretoria, manufactures and supplies a large variety of vaccines. These are made available to farmers at a very small cost and can be used to give animals immunity against infectious diseases. Movement permits. Any person who wants to import and transport any animal or parasite or contaminated or infectious thing must obtain a permit and follow the conditions. imposed in the permit. Each province of South Africa has its own nature. Conservation permit issued by the provincial authority to move the animals from one province to another, and an export or re-import permit to move them back home. Under certain circumstances, a permit from the state veterinarian is also required to move an animal. Animals that cross international borders also need import and export permits from CITES, Convention for International Trade in Endangered Species. Importation of vaccines. A vaccine may only be imported, distributed or sold for use in animals when it has been registered in terms of the Fertilizers, Farm Feeds, Agricultural Remedies and Stock Remedies Act, 1947, Act 360, 1947. It must be approved as safe and effective. A registered vaccine can only be imported by obtaining an import permit from the Directorate of Animal Health. Duties of owners of animals. Owners must take all reasonable steps to prevent infection of animals with diseases or parasites and the spreading thereof. They must apply the prescribed treatment. They must also report infectious diseases to the relevant authorities. Import bans. The Minister of Agriculture, Forestry and Fisheries published a notice that, according to the Government Gazette of March 22, 2011, the importation of all cloven-hoofed animals from countries or zones that are not recognized as free from foot and mouth disease, FMD, by the World Organization as free from foot and mouth disease, FMD, by the World Organization. The reason for this is to protect the livestock industry and other related industries against the introduction of animal diseases into our country. Export of animals and animal products. Animals with contagious diseases may not be exported to any other country, to prevent the spread of the disease globally. Animals and animal products must first be inspected by veterinary surgeons who will issue certificates declaring that they are free from diseases and pests. Animal health schemes. The Minister may establish a scheme for the improvement of animal health. The scheme will identify the kinds of animals and the animal diseases or parasites that will be included. It will also specify the kinds of animals that are susceptible, and will thus be carriers of the disease or parasite, to the animal disease or parasite, as well as the vectors responsible for spreading the disease or parasite. It will also include controlled veterinary measures such as tests, examinations, treatments or disposal of carcasses. Measures to prevent infection or reinfection of the animals must be determined. Control measures put in place by the state include: the Minister may prescribe general control measures or control measures about infectious animal diseases and parasites. The control measures may include restrictions on slaughtering, killing, hunting, or catching of animals and the movement of animals. The control measures may be for the whole country or a defined area. All owners and managers of land as well as owners of animals in the specific area will be informed about the control measures as well as the time period for which they apply. The owners and managers must keep records of all the animals in the control areas. The control measures will remain in force until the period has expired. Research. The Onderstepoort Veterinary Institute, OVI. Veterinary research aimed at improving vaccines, diagnostic products and developing new products. Diagnostic services aimed at prevention of diseases, control and surveillance. Producing diseases and blood vaccines. Activity/assessment. Learners can also use the following sources of information to do activities. Relevant Grade 12 textbooks. Focus Control Textbook Grade 12. Mind the Gap Agricultural Sciences Grade 12. Pass Agricultural Sciences Grade 12, Unit 5 page 79. Pass Grade November 12th Exam Papers. Consolidation. The lesson covered the content as stipulated in the CAPS document. Learners who understand the content should be applied the knowledge and skills required to successfully answer questions based on the curriculum content. Learners will be able to use the knowledge and skills as a sound foundation for progression to the next topic. Basic agricultural genetics.
Please like, share, and subscribe to the channel for more future educational videos.